Well, okay, as expected, the Madden NFL 16 news train really started rolling in a couple of days up to the run-up of E3, and then once Madden went on stage during EA's conference, and then following it. So we've gotten a lot of information about the direction that Madden 16 is going. What I'm referring to are specifically there's an offensive updates blog, there's a defensive updates blog, and then there's also a blog about the penalties and other sorts of artificial intelligence. So a lot of stuff to dive into. We're not going to go item by item, detail by detail. So I guess where I want to start is with you, Brian Weedeye. Of all of the information released about how the on-field gameplay is going to be affected next season, which of the various items sort of caught your eye and piqued your interest the most?
Well, it's got to be penalties, Rich, right? Because this is a favorite subject. No, but
right
yeah, that is a big one, and I want to talk a little bit about it more, I guess, in a little later on, because what people are seeing at E3 isn't really meshing with what they were saying, but and there are reasons for that, but. It's the wide receiver defensive back interactions. I think that's the biggest thing I've been asking for it seems like a decade, because you couldn't exploit matchups down the field. Now you can. Ratings didn't really prove a separation between players so much so, other than they throw in occasional animations that a spectacular catch guy can do. But the strategy that went into that, and then the danger of just throwing downfield because there was no interaction, and the defender was usually the one in better position to get to the ball, really kind of changed the way you can play the game. It turned everybody into more West Coast type offenses where they just keep things short and timing based, really, instead of any improvisation. So. That's what I'm looking forward to most, and out of a little bit of footage we've seen, I like what we see in that regard. There are some issues also I've spotted in just brief footage, but that's definitely the thing that excites me the most about this game, is that we're going to be able to go downfield now, and they're even giving you an option of how you want to attack the ball in the air, whether you're on offense or defense, and I think that's going to be interesting if it clicks right and if it's balanced right.
Ryan Lewis, same question to you. A lot of flood of information, on-field modifications, improvements, changes. Which of those stuck out to you as you're most interested in?
Oh man, well, so the PA end-around exploit has been addressed, so I think we can all leave now, right? I think we're all set, right? Madden 16, let's do this. Yeah, so I think actually, like, just seeing some of the gameplay and just kind of knowing what some of the things that they're highlighting this year. Definitely having another little kind of micro game, another little risk reward of being able to play the ball in the air, aggressive or conservative, like grab, and then also the positioning of the passing. I mean, we'll see how it works in practice, but I like the concept of having those little battles between the receiver and the cornerback and adding that extra piece to it, because I always felt like, a lot of the times, like, you'd throw the ball in the air, and it seems like last year, you throw the ball deep, and like it didn't matter the rating of the cornerback. You could be up against Calvin Johnson, and he's not even going to make a play on the ball. It's going to get picked if it's a bomb. And I'm kind of also curious to see how this will play out, to see if with everything that you add, I'm sure that they do quite a bit of balancing and testing to make sure that people aren't going to exploit it. But it just adds that other little possibility. But overall, I'm really excited about that addition, and then the gang tackling and all that kind of stuff looks really cool.
Yeah, before we go back to Rich, I wanted to say something. You brought up Calvin Johnson, which was always one of my biggest gripes, again, when we go back to wide receivers and defensive backs. Is if you go online, people would just, he was like anybody else, because people would just single cover him, basically. Nobody rolled coverages towards receivers because they really didn't have to, because they knew you couldn't throw downfield. So it negated, like, strengths of the best wide receivers in the league. I have a question for you guys, though. I mean, as far as like the interactions go and different things, the last couple of years they've gone towards like adding icons on the screen, whether it's the defensive line controls flash up with the button and whether you got the right timing on it, or this year, or the tackle cone was another big one last year. This year they're adding things like the aggressive or conservative catch, or I saw in the footage today it flash up whether your quarterback had thrown a bullet pass or a lob pass or whatever it might be. You'd see that on screen. Now you can probably turn those off, but I was curious what your opinions were on putting those visual indicators on screen as defaults.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, like you said, you'll be able to turn those off just as you could turn off the tackling cone. And I think it's helpful. I mean, these games get so complicated, and you add another new kind of feature to it where you're going to have these wide receiver DB interactions, and I think you have to do something because, a perfect example is like I can never figure out how to change from a regular kick formation to an onside kick formation. Mm-hmm. So I always burn a timeout because I have no idea. And I think it was last year they would add in, okay, here's what you need to do to switch. And so I feel like, the more help you can be, like, to the default player, the better. So I'm actually for that. I don't think it ruins anything for me, and you just turn it off if it does.
Yeah, I'm definitely of the opinion that feedback is good, and in fact, that's one of the things that I saw that has me most interested. Last year, one of the features that I really enjoyed was a lot of the analytics, a lot of the information before the snap, where you sort of could look at the matchups, the numbers of the wide receivers versus who was covering them, and then after, you got to see what play you ran and what play the defense ran, and you see your average yards gained and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that. It makes me feel smarter in the same way that when these days when a head coach or an offensive coordinator is calling plays, they have similar types of information before and after. So I really like that. So one of the things that I saw that had me the most interested was feedback on the passes. I'm not sure if you guys caught this. It was a little item, but after a pass is thrown, you're going to find out, was your quarterback throwing on the run? Was he throwing off of his back foot? Like that kind of information that will give you a little more indicator as to why a certain pass went a certain way. So I guess that's a very long-winded way of getting to your question, Brian, but I do like feedback and information, and the way that I'm hoping, and it sounds like you are too, that it is going to be presented to us is in a way that we can sort of configure what we want to see versus what we don't want to see. And I sort of liken it to MLB The Show, where you have all these different options for how you want to experience the game, both from a presentation, from a control perspective. Like there's all these different choices. It's one of the best things about the show. I'm hoping Madden is like that as well. Now, conversely, I guess one of the things, we play a lot of Madden, and we get very familiar with it, right? The first couple of weeks after you get a new Madden, you got to kind of figure out all the little things and tweaks. And in fact, this year, this past year, with the introduction of the new play calling system, was a pretty significant change to the user interface. So it took a little while to get used to it. One of the things that has me the most concerned isn't the right word, but the most is the passing, where you get to choose the type of pass that you want to make. If you're the receiver, you can choose to have a yards after the catch type of pass, a possession catch, or an aggressive catch. There's not a lot of time between when you throw the ball and when you catch the ball. I'm a little concerned about how that's all going to be implemented, and even more so how that's going to be fun, and how it's going to influence the play. Brian, I'm curious your thoughts on that aspect of this as well.
Well, that was actually one of the points I was going to make about all of the on-screen indicators. Is that a lot of them? I mean, last year the tackle cone was pointless. I mean, was there ever a situation where you saw it come up on screen, and then you had time to think that you were in range to make a certain type of tackle? It never happened. I mean, I'd see it flash, and I was already in the process of making a decision. It didn't alter decisions. Now, on like a deep bomb, you're going to have time now to say, okay, what type of catch do I want to do? I really want to go up and high point this ball, or do I want to position differently? You have a little more time to do that, but there's so much that happens just instantaneously, and it has to be just second nature to you that, regardless of something showing up on screen, just even beforehand what type of catch you want to make based on the route that's being run or based on the coverage you're seeing. So I'm not sure how much good this actually ends up doing. Like Rich, you said it'll tell you, if you threw off your back foot or something. That's good post-play information. But, during the plays, I'm not sure this really does a whole lot of good for that many people.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, you're just like us. You spend a lot of time playing Madden. You sort of get in a groove. You understand how to do certain things, what certain play calls will do when you throw the ball, during a route, how it's going to, potentially allow for yards after the catch or for possession. What is all this wide receiver, catching and, angled throwing and all that? Do you feel that's going to have a significant impact to the game? Are you concerned about that, or do you think it might actually be not as impactful as we might be thinking it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably what you're saying, there's probably some truth to the impact of it as far as, like, maybe it's not that significant, but there's probably some default action, like one of those catches he probably just does without you even pressing anything, which is probably going to be the most conservative option. But I think it's just like anything else, like you learn how to use it. I mean, what's the percentage of players that use all the different running back moves that are like hurdling people and juking and spinning at all the right. I mean, when I've seen it and based on my own experience, like I do the spin or I do a juke. I don't hurdle people most of the time. I don't.
Truck stick, baby.
Truck stick, yeah. I mean, stiff arm, all that kind of stuff. But I think in general, your average player is like, whatever the default kind of thing is, and so. I think it'll be good in some cases. Like it looks like I saw in some of the gameplay today. There's this really cool catch that like basically went up and it was an aggressive catch. And I think if you would have done the conservative catch in that instance, it probably wouldn't have turned out the same way. And it was like a pretty cool animation after it was done. So I don't know. I think there's going to be a default, and I think people will figure it out. But like you're saying, those buttons, it's probably after a little while, it's just going to be like, okay, I already know what I'm doing. So
The catch you're probably referring to, by the way, just to get on Rich's nerves, it looks like he pushes off on the cornerback.
Is it the one like kind of? It's on like the left sideline. I think it's Jordy Nelson, and he rolls back. Yeah, that one's pretty awesome.
So we'll throw that up while we're talking here during this to show people. But this will tick Rich off because it looks like he pushes off. There's no flag thrown, but the defender after the play's over, he's calling
for the flag. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, that happens in real life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that adds to the realism, I think. But I mean there's also an issue with that play in that I don't think Jordy Nelson ever gets touched and the play ends anyway. Just like another legacy thing we see creep back in. But yeah, I mean that was a great catch, and there's another one I'll throw up during this that I had pulled out, and they look really good. And I think it's probably on a fairly low difficulty setting at E3 that we're seeing most of the footage come out. Plus, I suspect that they've turned penalties down for this because, I mean, look, as much as we want penalties, one place I would say you don't need penalties is at E3 when you have like 100 people around you and it's 200 degrees and you have like 10 minutes to play. Nobody wants to walk up to the station, get ready, and get called for penalties left and right.
Holding like on every run, yeah.
Yeah, so basically everyone at E3 is Rich Grisham. They don't want penalties called at all, and EA's gonna, they're gonna give them that experience there, so the bad word of mouth doesn't start that Rich would start in that situation, and see how it goes.
So let me see if I understand it, Brian. When people are around, you don't want penalties, but when you're by yourself in your house, that's when you want penalties. That's when it's acceptable for a bunch of random penalties to happen.
Yes. First of all, they're not random, but second, no, those people there have like 5 minutes to play, Rich. We're playing with like 10-minute quarters. It's sitting at home in a comfortable, they want to just see what the game is like. We're not. It's a big difference, and you know this, yet you're challenging me on it.
I will say, even though I remain steadfast in my distinct minority view that more penalties equals less fun, in reading about how they are going to be making penalties happen, they're going to assign each player sort of a value. Higher penalized players in the real NFL will have a higher occurrence for penalties versus those that do not. But on the other hand, I just still think this is a recipe for some unhappy people. But we shall see.
There's also the sliders, which they say will work. So even in an online franchise, you could jack that up or lower it and get it to whatever people settle on.
And I know you maniacs in our league are going to
all the way up, baby.
Way up. I know
real,
that. Trust
real
me.
NFL numbers, real percentages. Yeah. We're gonna get a call on 8% of every snap, Rich.
Illegal formations. You're like, what? It goes to play. Like I don't.
All I did was call a play, and I got a penalty. Come on. All right.
Why did my coach get an unsportsmanlike conduct?
Yeah.
He was yelling at the refs?
Yeah, that was the Connect feature that they added.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't have the opportunity to throw a baseball at your head twice in a row like I do in MLB The Show.
Rich Grisham, I finally got him to lose his temper. I beat him in the playoffs in MLB The Show, and he lost it in the 9th inning. He went out for me.
You deserved it. All right. Last item on this, you mentioned, Brian, you've seen some of the gameplay footage, the show floor footage. Now, E3 footage, this is a demo, right? This is an alpha build or a beta build. It's something in between, something in between where they want to be and where they are. So with that as sort of a caveat, what did you, other than what you've already talked about, anything else that you see? What's your overall impressions? What did you like? What has you potentially concerned about what you've seen of the actual gameplay footage of Madden 16 so far?
Yeah, I mean, what really does stand out are those interactions between the receiver and the defenders, and just how that can really benefit you and how you play. That being said, I mean, okay, yeah, the game looks pretty sharp, but there was also some footage from the floor, just very brief, but there was some. I just identified several things in like 15 seconds that were just way off, and legacy type issues. Like I mentioned before, in the one, the guy didn't seem to be touched, and the play was over. But in this other one, there was like this really bad-looking deflection where the ball goes up, and again, that when that situation happens and it hits your guy in the helmet and just drops to the ground. So there was that. Ryan Tannehill threw the pass. That was the last pass of the game. It was basically a Hail Mary. It goes incomplete, and then it cuts to the sideline where Joe Philbin is standing there, looking just, no expression on his face, and there's Ryan Tannehill standing behind him on the sideline, right? Again, just like last year. And then they added this post-game graphic where players they're like running off the field.
The augmented reality.
Yeah, it looks cool, but my first thought was that they don't do that on actual broadcasts, and players don't run off the field like that. There's always like 100 other people on the field at the same time. So it's just little things that kind of pull you back out after you start to see these really flashy looking neat animations and stuff, and get excited about that. One other thing I have to point out is and this was really cool, was the cameraman in the end zone. So I believe it was Joe Horn in the touchdown pass. Goes to the ground. He's got the touchdown. Gets up. The cameraman walks over to him, with his camera right up to him, and follows him. I mean, and in the past, the cameramen have been just standing on the sidelines, usually looking anywhere but at the action. So I just thought it was neat.
Wearing shorts in a snowstorm.
Yes, there's that too. So, and that I believe they fixed that for this year. So, just a cool little touch, but it just goes to show when I saw that. Actually, I didn't even see it the first time. Someone on Twitter pointed it out to me. But when there's just little things like that, can make really a big difference. I saw that and I was like, oh, I have to point this out because this is pretty neat to see.
Yep, I agree. It's interesting too because as the game continues to get more and more evolved, as they're able to put more and more things in that they want to do, the legacy issues I think stand out more, right? As different things improve, the little things really become even more apparent. So very interesting challenge they have. Ryan Lewis, your final thoughts on Madden? The E3 performance and the draft. What is it? Draft champions, right? The footage. Any sort of wrap up on what you've seen and what you like and what your let me take the Ryan Lewis temperature of Madden NFL 16 at E3.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what people expect out of E3 for Madden or for any game. Some people are never gonna, they would have to blow them away with some kind of new feature or just this crazy thing in order for them to get back on board. But for me, like, the legacy feature that I didn't see too much of was like the weird warping animations and confused looking players after, like, the kind of Infinity Engine, like wrap ups. I'm sure you'll still see a little bit of that, but I didn't see a ton of that after the plays. Either the camera cut away or, so that's always what annoyed me. But in general, I'm happy with what they did as far as gameplay goes. I liked the improvements I've seen as far as CFM goes, and I have to say that I'm very excited about this Draft Champions mode. I don't see right through you, EA. You're trying to get people on MU. This is a gateway drug to play in MUT. Like, it's exactly what it is, because you get these players, you get to pick from 3 things, and you're like, oh man, like, I wish I could pick more of these. Oh wait, and with MUT, like, I can get whole packs and like hawk my car and like go buy, like, the Deion Sanders Super Duper Deluxe Gold package card, like, because he's 99 and everything. It's like, no, honestly though, like, I think this is a really cool, like, I think it's a really cool idea. It was probably, it can be expanded on. I think, when you pick from 3 players, it's kind of a cool little strategy. But I think it would be really cool if, like, you could have a little bit more robust draft with actual, friends and take it from there. But in general, I like the idea, and I think a lot of people will like it.
I have one more thing to say, Rich.
Sure. Go for it.
I'm going to kick somebody. I'm going to kick somebody. It's not going to be my dogs. I'm going to kick somebody if they still have that post-play scene where after you kick an extra point or a field goal, you watch your backup quarterback walking off the field like he did something. He held the ball. No broadcast puts the holder on the screen
Tony
for
Romo.
10 seconds after a kick. Come on, EA.
Yeah.
Tony Romo, Seattle playoffs. I can think of at least one time.
In Madden, well, yes, but that's something went wrong. Nothing goes wrong on extra points or field goals in Madden. But he wouldn't have even been in there because by default they put your backup quarterback holding it.
Well, you know why you're not going to have to kick anybody, Brian Weedeye?
Because I'm going for 2 every time.
Because everybody is going for 2 every time because of that whole thing. But that's a story and a conversation for another day. All right, so that is the Madden 16 E3 2015 official Hit the Pass wrap-up. Thanks, everybody.